Ninja Gaiden Masters Edition is the remake of the classic and probably one of the very first NES games that I ever played. Notoriously difficult. People do run-throughs all the time, speed runs all the time. I want to talk about it. We're going to talk about the changes that I did, and we're going to talk about just Ninja Gaiden in general. So the very first thing that I noticed when I went in and looked at the actual box of Ninja Gaiden for the NES, it did not look exactly like the arcade. I didn't know what to expect at the moment, but I said I'll give it a try because I was a big fan of the arcade, as simplistic as it was. The original arcade, which was also called, I believe, Shadow Warriors, and in it, it's a typical beat 'em up, but you played a couple of ninjas, two players at the same time. Now, when the arcade came out, ninjas and ninja movies were really popular at the time. You couldn't go anywhere in a video rental store and not see Revenge of the Ninja, Ninja the Domination, Ninja 3, whatever, 9 Deaths of the Ninja. There were tons. They were all over the place. And so they said, hey, make a video game about it. Now, there's not much that's unique about it other than the actual joystick itself on the arcade. It had a red button. It looked like a red fire button. It was on top of the actual joystick. And that was your hang-on button or cling button, whatever you want to call it, where you would see places where your ninja could actually, what do you want to call it, cling on or hang on to things, kind of like the monkey bars in a playground. And he would do the chicken fighting thing where you would try and kick forward in front of you or behind you and kick the enemies down. And I don't know, it was a little innovative for the time. I do remember, though, in the playground that a couple of my friends did do that move. We were playing tag or something like that. We were very little. I think it was like grade 1 or 2. And instead of the person running up to touch us to say, tag, you're it, my friend Ryan, I think his name was, started doing that Ninja Gaiden chicken kick, and he actually kicked my friend Billy right in the eye. But anyway, that's the game. It's pretty simplistic. You can do like a no-hand somersault, grab the enemy and throw them, or you can beat them up, or occasionally you can get the swords as a power-up and they would just slash the enemy and knock them down. Very simplistic beat 'em up. So now on to the NES version. They did not make it a beat 'em up. They just made it a side-scroller, platformer, and they made it where your ninja will always have his sword. That's the biggest thing I noticed right away. I was a little bit disappointed in it that you just always had the sword. You couldn't actually beat up the enemies anymore, but it took a lot of years for me to actually appreciate that Nintendo did a better version, I think, with theirs than the arcade. And this was a time, and it's the same thing with Rygar, it's a time where Nintendo wanted to give the player, I think, a little bit more for their money, and they saw the arcade version counterparts as just being too simplistic and not enough for what the kid or child or whatever it was, or parents, were paying for. Now, Ninja Gaiden 1 is the most hardest NES game I've ever played. It is more so than even, I'd say, Adventures of Link or any other game. It doesn't matter, because the minute that you make it to the end, okay, stay with me on this, I'll explain it if you haven't played it before. There is that specific boss, Jakui or whatever his name is, I can't ever pronounce, that flies across the screen from left to right, and he shoots like heat-seeking fireballs at you. You will not pass him. The situations that have to be in place in order for you even to have a chance is you have to have full life, you have to have the ninja slash weapon where he spins in the air with his slashes out, and you have to make sure that you have a lot of ammunition and that you can hit him with every single slash. And I think that is the only way that I could ever think of beating him. But guess what? It's never gonna happen, because to do that, you have to make it there without using any weapons to begin with throughout any of the stages, just to save your ammo. And you have to make it to him with the slash weapon without grabbing any other weapons, and without dying, and without taking any damage from the previous boss or previous levels before. It's insane. To this day, I have never passed that boss without completely cheating. In other words, save states on the game and everything like that. Trust me, it's an up at dawn, pride swallowing siege of frustration that I will never fully tell you about, okay? And I don't even like even thinking about even attempting it. And if that wasn't enough, there's even a major boss, the big demon boss you have to fight after that, who has 3 different forms and spews pussy things out of his back all over the screen. It's an absolute nightmare. So I said to myself, I have to do something about this game. I have to fix it. I have to fix it so it's not ridiculously impossible. And the very first thing I wanted to address was the enemy respawning issue. Now, the NES had some kind of flaw. It's built into the actual system. It's very difficult. A lot of games do this, and that is the respawn flaw. So in other words, if you have an enemy here and the screen just goes away a little bit for that enemy to just disappear off of the screen, if you go back again and move the screen again, that enemy will not be there anymore, or he'll just respawn again. And in the case of Ninja Gaiden, it's the latter, and it is a nightmare in a game that has a knockback system when you get hit. So every time you get hit, the enemy will just respawn and respawn because the screen is moving with you when you get knocked back. And there are so many cheap knockout parts where it hits you and you just go into the pits of death, as I like to call it, just off of the end of the screen or the bottom of the screen and you're dead. So I fixed that. Now the enemies, they respawn, but they don't continuously respawn. They only respawn one time like it's supposed to. I also enlarged the screen, okay, so you get a little bit more to work with. I made the stages a little bit longer on every single one, and they're not exactly spaced out exactly the same where the enemies are positioned. Now, things I wanted to add to the game to make it better was, for starters, I added a ninja kick to the game, because one thing I didn't like about the original one was if you had to jump down on a platform and there was an enemy down there, you're basically gonna get hit, and you're probably gonna get hit off the edge to boot because of how they're positioned. So I made it so if you jump and you hold down on the controller and you push jump again, he will do like a ninja jet kick that'll go diagonal down, and if it hits the enemy, he'll kind of hop off of the person's head, off of the enemy's head, kind of like when Mario jumps on top of things in his game. He does that little hop after he hits him on the head. Well, your ninja will do the exact same thing, and I thought that was a really great add to the game. A second thing that I added was I wanted to give it more flash too. If there's too many enemies on the screen and too much is going on, I put in the super ninja move, which again is kind of just taken from Shinobi, another ninja game, but I always like that. I don't know what it is. There's a special thing, that special thing about Shinobi I just love the best is the ninja magic or ninja type skills that you can do. So if you hold down the button, if you hold down the attack button in my version and then let it go, you will actually see your ninja flip around. He'll spin around on the screen, and he'll, depending on which weapon you have, he'll either shoot ninja stars that bounce all over the screen, or he'll shoot ninja spirits out of himself and pretty much clear almost everything on the screen. And there's a little Easter egg in that I think a couple of people mentioned in the comments now in other videos I had before they got deleted from YouTube, is that they recognized when the ninja goes hi-ya, you know, and I took that sound effect actually directly from Shinobi as just like a little homage Easter egg to it. All the cutscenes are represented in my version as well, and Ninja Gaiden actually won several awards, if you want to call them that, in the Nintendo Power magazines. I always remember it came in as best ending and best story sequence because it had the actual cutscenes, and not a lot of NES games had that at the time. And it did have a really good story, and it did have a really good ending as far as Nintendo games go. So the only one thing about it is the hardness. And like I said, people do speed runs of it all the time because of the notorious difficulty of it, and I think also because of the fast-paced nature of the game. So I didn't want to lose that essence. So it still feels like that. It still feels like Ninja Gaiden through and through, except now it's not ridiculously impossible. Another thing too, a little extra thing that I did add, which is another Easter egg, is I did add a boss that's not even in the original game, and he is the green commando ninja that you have to fight, who is actually from my favorite ninja movie of the 80s, Ninja 3: The Domination. The very first fight scene of that movie is impressive. Even today, I think it's pretty rad. You can watch it on YouTube, and you probably don't need to watch the rest of the movie, because the problem with that movie is it starts out so strong with that, and then it kind of goes downhill after that with just like I won't spoil it for you, but whatever, you can watch it if you want. But if anything, watch the beginning fight scene and then you'll know why I put that boss in this game. So anyway, that's it for this video, Ninja Gaiden Masters Edition. I think the definitive best version of Ninja Gaiden that you can play. I mean, you could play the original, but then when you play mine, I think you kind of say to yourself like I do, why would I even want to play the original when I could play this one? It's so much more better, right? So it's a great game. You can get it on my website, of course, retrovideogames.store. And if you like the video, click the thumbs up button. If you like Ninja Gaiden, click the thumbs up button. Or if you didn't like it, whatever, you can click the thumbs down button. It doesn't bother me that much. But if you do want to see another remake that I did, click up here. And then if you want to subscribe, click over here on this little bubble. And I'll see you guys next video.